So I like to believe that 2 years is really the sweet spot to buy an old smartphone, because around 2 years, they're not so old that they're very slow and lacking features, and they're not so new that they're very expensive. So you get the best of both worlds in terms of performance and price and everything in between. And that's exactly where the iPhone 15 Pro is right now at the time of recording this video, because the iPhone 17 Pro is now out. So would you be better off saving some money and going for the 15 Pro in 2026? Or would it be better to just go all out for the 17 Pro? That's exactly what I want to talk about in this video, based on my experience of using both of these phones. I've been using the 17 Pro since launch as my daily driver, and I've also, of course, used the iPhone 15 Pro for a very long time. With that being said, I think we should start with the design, because that's arguably one of the biggest difference between these two phones, at least visually. With the iPhone 17 Pro lineup, we finally have a new design, at least for the Pro models. And with this design, one of the biggest change is the material the phone is made out of, which is aluminum now. Before, it used to be titanium on the 16 Pro, 15 Pro, and before that, it was stainless steel. So the downside for having aluminum is that it's softer than titanium stainless steel, which means it scratches and dents a lot easier. But it's not really a problem in my opinion, at least, because almost every single person is going to use a case, including me, so it's not going to be an issue, to be honest. This one in particular is from Taurus, and if you know me, you know I really like these cases because they're built very well, they look good in my opinion, they work perfectly with MagSafe, they have grip on the sides because of this dotted pattern, and this one specifically, the Q3 Air, literally has built-in airbags, so it does a great job of protecting your phone in drops by providing cushioning and absorbing the impact, kind of like a real airbag. You can also get custom buttons, they're replaceable, but personally, one of the biggest reasons why I keep recommending these cases is because of this built-in stand. It's by far one of the best features I have ever seen on any case I've ever used. And it's not just a gimmick, it's something I actually find myself using a lot. For example, when I'm watching videos or when I'm at the gym, I can use this to stick my phone to magnetic surfaces or to even just hold my phone more securely. It actually also allows you to be more creative when recording video with your phone and get unique angles that might not be possible or would at least be very difficult without the O stand. I also use a Taurus case on my Pixel 10 Pro because of this built-in stand. So you're gonna get a case no matter what. So I would highly recommend you to check this out. I'll leave links below. Another two small changes on the iPhone 17 Pro design are, one, the camera control button, which the iPhone 15 Pro doesn't have, but that's not really a problem in my opinion either because I barely use it. I think I just use it to launch the camera app and that's about it. And the second change is that the 17 Pro is eSIM only, at least in the country I am in. So this might be an issue for some people. For me, it's again not an issue because eSIM isn't actually as bad as I thought it would be. It's pretty simple to switch across one iPhone to another. It's a little bit more difficult to switch if you are switching from like Android to iPhone. But if that's not the case, shouldn't be a huge problem. When it comes to the front of these phones, they look very similar, but there are a few key differences which I think make a pretty big difference in how you use these phones. So the biggest one I think is just the size of the screen, because the 15 Pro has a 6.1-inch display while the 17 Pro has a 6.3-inch display, which sounds like a small difference, but that's actually pretty big. Like if you put these phones side by side, the 17 Pro is noticeably bigger, and that makes a difference because it changes how you hold and use the phone with one hand. The 15 Pro also weighs significantly less, like you can feel the difference, so that also makes it easier to use with one hand. But the 17 Pro goes up to 3000 nits of brightness versus 2000 on the 15 Pro, and the difference is kind of noticeable, especially in very bright scenarios, but it's not a deal breaker, I think, because the 15 Pro, I think, gets bright enough to use outdoors comfortably. There's also an anti-reflective coating on the 17 Pro screen now, which number one isn't very anti-reflective to begin with, like it's kind of mediocre. And number two, as soon as you put a screen protector on, it becomes useless because you're just adding another layer of glass, which needs its own anti-reflective coating, which most screen protectors do not have. And if you find a screen protector that has the anti-reflective coating, well, you can just get the same thing for the 15 Pro. In terms of visual differences, the 17 Pro has thinner bezels compared to the 15 Pro, but the 15 Pro doesn't really have thick bezels exactly, because if you look at something from a few years ago, like the 13 Pro, the 14 Pro, those I would say are starting to feel very thick now. This I think still feels very modern. It's not that bad. Obviously, the 17 Pro looks better though. Other than that, both screens are really good, very sharp, very color accurate. Both have 120 Hz, both get plenty bright. They're not bad. You'll be fine with either one of these. I'll be fine with either one of these. Now, when it comes to performance, this is where I feel like these phones start to become more and more different. So the 17 Pro has an A19 Pro chip inside, and the 15 Pro has the A17 Pro chip inside. Now, in terms of like raw performance, you're not actually going to notice a huge difference, because for everyday tasks like calling, texting, browsing, watching videos, stuff like that, both of these are more than powerful enough. And when it comes to stuff like gaming and more intensive tasks like video editing and stuff like that, the 17 Pro will obviously perform a little bit better. You will see a little bit of that difference. The 15 Pro will still do a lot of those things perfectly fine, but may not be quite as good as a 17 Pro. But the real difference here, I think, is when it comes to the design of the 17 Pro. Because it has a vapor chamber inside, it can sustain higher performance for a longer time. And generally speaking, the 15 Pro has been known to heat up. It's been known to have overheating issues, especially when it was new. But from my personal experience, I have almost never experienced that. Yes, this phone occasionally gets warm, and I think the 17 Pro also does that. But, you know, I haven't really noticed anything concerning with the 15 Pro. That said, I do also live in Canada, which is a very cold country, like especially right now. So even if this phone were to overheat, the chance of that happening here would be very low. But what I like about the iPhone 15 Pro is that this is kind of a special one from the entire 15 lineup, because this is or at least the Pro models are the only ones that get Apple Intelligence, while the base model 15s do not. And that's because of the A17 Pro chip inside. It's powerful enough to handle those AI tasks. This means you have all the latest and greatest Apple Intelligence features as long as you're updating your phone. So this includes visual intelligence and, you know, the smarter Siri or smarter Siri. It's really not smart. In fact, all of the Apple Intelligence features aren't exactly cool, at least right now, but if they do get better in the future, you will have access to all of them on the 15 Pro. However, the 17 Pro does have more RAM, 12 gigs versus 8 gigs in the 15 Pro. And I think a lot of that has to do because of AI. Apple's probably put more RAM here because the AI tasks probably use a lot. But again, in terms of daily performance, I haven't been able to notice a huge difference between these two phones. Both feel very fast, responsive, snappy. They're great. Now, if you get the iPhone 15 Pro, you can expect this phone to get security and software updates for at least the next 2 years, so till 2028. The 17 Pro will obviously get many more updates, I think for the next 5 years at least, but it's good to know that you still have software support on this phone. Now, I think by far the biggest difference between these two phones is when it comes to the battery, because the iPhone 17 Pro has a 4,252 milliamp hour battery inside, while the 15 Pro has a 3,274 milliamp hour battery. So the 17 Pro has nearly a 1,000 milliamp hour bigger battery. That's a huge difference, and you definitely notice it. So on the 15 Pro, I can usually get around 5 to 6 hours of screen on time and still have like 20-30% battery remaining at the end of the day. Or if I get up to 7 hours, I'll have basically 0% remaining. However, on the 17 Pro, with 5 to 6 hours of screen on time, I'll still have like 40-50% battery remaining sometimes. And with like 7, 8, 9 hours, this phone will still have a few percent remaining at the end of the day, which is really, really good battery life. This phone can easily last me like 2 days on a single charge, no problem. I can forget to charge it one day and wake up the next day, still use it perfectly fine, not even an issue. On the 15 Pro, that's not really the case. If you do forget to charge this phone, you're gonna be looking for a charger the next day. On both of these phones, if you go to the battery settings, charging, you can set a charge limit on both of them. So you can basically limit the phone to charge only up to like 80, 85, 90, whatever, something like that percent, right? So the point of this is to reduce battery degradation, but it's only really useful on the 17 Pro in my opinion, because it has really good battery life that you have that extra buffer to limit the charging. So that is something to think about. If you're gonna get the 17 Pro, you plan on using it for the next 2, 3, 4 years maybe, then you might want to use that setting, which is something you totally can use because of the really good battery life. And generally speaking, it will be harder to get a 15 Pro with 100% battery health just because it's older. However, one pro tip is to get a 15 Pro from Apple refurbished. I think that's the best place you can get this phone because it's essentially brand new. I got this phone from Apple refurbished. I had a fantastic experience. I would 100% recommend you as well if you are considering getting this phone. Or in fact, any other Apple product, definitely check out Apple refurbished. They're not sponsoring this or anything, so this is an honest opinion. The 17 Pro does charge much faster though. It can charge as fast as 45 watts, while the 15 Pro can only charge around 30 watts, I think. 17 Pro also charges much faster wirelessly at up to 25 watts versus 15 on the 15 Pro. Now, where things really get interesting is when it comes to the cameras, because despite being 2 years apart, they're not actually that different, at least on paper. So if you look at the main camera on both of these phones, it's actually exactly the same. Literally copy and paste the same sensor size, the same pixel size, the same megapixel count. Literally every single thing is the same. But if you look at the results, photos and videos, they're not always the same. And that's because a big part of smartphone photography is software. So the software on the 17 Pro is slightly different than it is on the 15 Pro. But don't get me wrong, the difference is incredibly small. Like, you really have to look for it, but it's there, especially in the colors, I would say. But generally, both of these phones love raising shadows just like every other iPhone, and the human brain prefers brighter photos. We perceive brighter photos to be better. So that's not exactly a bad thing, but technically makes the photo less accurate. When it comes to the ultra-wide camera, the sensor on both of these phones is exactly the same size, but the megapixel count is different, like 12 megapixel on the 15 Pro and 48 megapixel on the 17 Pro. So you may be wondering, how is that possible if the sensor size is exactly the same? Well, it's because the 17 Pro has smaller pixels, so you're able to fit more pixels in the same area. On the 15 Pro, the pixels are bigger, so there are fewer of them. Now, this means two things. Number one, with more pixels, you do technically get more detail, but because each pixel is smaller, technically they capture less light. So in bright conditions, I think the 17 Pro definitely looks sharper. I think it's a much better photo overall because of the megapixel count. Again, don't get me wrong, the difference is very small. You really have to zoom in to see it. However, when it comes to low light conditions, I do find the 15 Pro to be slightly better because it literally looks brighter. It actually captures more light. You can see it. And this is of course because of the bigger pixels. So more pixels doesn't always automatically mean better photos in all conditions. The pixel size also matters. And finally, when it comes to the telephoto camera, it's physically better on the 17 Pro because it has a larger sensor, about 90% bigger or 2 times larger. So it of course captures more light. However, it still has smaller pixels than the one on the 15 Pro. The biggest difference I have noticed is that the 17 Pro telephoto camera relies much less on the main camera. So typically, this is how it works on iPhones. If you are trying to take a telephoto photo, and if the condition is slightly dark, usually it will just, instead of using the telephoto camera, it will just use the main camera, crop in and give you the results. But on the 17 Pro, that seems to be a lot better. It seems to use the telephoto camera more often, while the 15 Pro seems to rely a lot more on the main camera. And this was an issue with the 16 Pro as well, but seems to be a lot better on the 17 Pro. The selfie camera is also much better on the 17 Pro, not only in terms of quality, but also in terms of features, because it literally has a square sensor. So if you want to take a landscape photo, you don't have to flip your phone around. You can just take it without doing that. This is obviously not something you can do on the 15 Pro because it doesn't have a square sensor. But other than that, all the other differences are mainly when it comes to all the Pro features. For example, the 17 Pro can record Pro RAW video, while this 15 Pro cannot do that. Although, to be honest with you, even I haven't used Pro RAW video, so that's like a real professional tool. Like, even I don't use it. I do use Apple Log 2 though, so that's really good. The 15 Pro also has Apple Log, which I think is also good enough. So overall, considering everything and my experience with both of these phones, I do think both of these are really good. Like, you could honestly get either one of them and be perfectly fine. I think the decision really comes down to two things. Number one, the battery life. If you need that extra, much better battery life on the 17 Pro, then this is the one to get. If you don't, then the 15 Pro might be good enough for you. And number two is the price. If you can obviously afford the 17 Pro and you might need that battery life, then this is the one to get. But if you cannot afford this, then this is kind of like your only option. Unless you want to look at some other things like maybe the 16 Pro, which is kind of in the middle, or maybe the 17 Pro, which I think is actually one of the best iPhones to get this year if you're talking about new iPhones. Or you could also look at maybe 16, I think, which I also think is pretty good. I have reviewed all of these ones that I've mentioned, so I'll leave links over here. Check them out and I'll see you there.